I want to ask about the state of basketball within Canada. Toronto has been a focal point in terms of talent coming out of the country, and particularly, can you speak to that? We talked to other journalists, experts regarding just the rise of basketball to Canada and how Vince Carter played a big role. Is there anything else that played a contribution into the rise of what we're seeing in terms of a lot more Canadian players really taking over the NBA and even college basketball as well?
Yeah, I think Vince obviously had a huge impact, and I think you look at just now there's kind of a second wave. You look at guys like Jamal Murray, Andrew Wiggins, and kind of that wave, and now you see kind of younger guys like even Zach Edey, Shaden Sharp. There's just so many guys now. We used to only celebrate like the 2, 3 Canadians that were in the league, and I think one of the things too is just like continue for the guys to continue to build through like the national program too. I know there's high expectations for Team Canada at the Olympics last summer, and they disappointed losing in the quarterfinals, but like just continue to have funding kind of go into that. And you're seeing more Canadians kind of just go to prep school route now and be able to set up themselves to like, really give themselves an opportunity, whether it's playing in the NBA and overseas. So yeah, the Canadian infrastructure for basketball, I think is as strong as ever. And I think we're now starting to see like couple generations now of impact from like what Vince brought to Toronto.
Yeah, it's always funny because like obviously Vince is like huge, and Vince was like a big proponent of brought a big spotlight to Canada, Toronto in particular. But like I feel like Steve Nash almost gets lost in this conversation here. Like he did win 2 MVPs. Like I just remember growing up, like it was on TV every day. It was during the time when you had to like sit around and wait for like Sports Center to roll around for the next half hour. But like, yeah, well, I assure you, Canadian Sports Center was showing Phoenix Suns highlights all the time with Steve Nash, and I was like super enamored, And I think that seeing a Canadian win MVP, that was like ridiculous. Before that, we had like, big Bill Wenningtons, we had like, Samuel Dalembert. It's like, that's cool. Like, there was like Jamal McGlure, like, there was a certain pride. Jamal McGlure even made the All-Star game once. Um, but seeing Steve was like, it was like, that was also really, really awesome. And I think we'll probably see a second one with Shea winning it this year as well. I think he's certainly the favorite. He's certainly gunning for it, it feels like. But to what Alex has said too, like the underground movement in terms of like getting AAU programs here in Canada, like that only took place, in the last like 10, 15 years. And getting the infrastructure in place for these players to actually play at a high level, to go compete with top end talents and go to tournaments in the States. And, the States also started sending like scouts up here too. That's the other thing. Is like if you don't scout, like these people are never going to get a chance. And once you start getting all this Canadian talent, like that's the product that the scouts actually coming up here to try to find like the next Steve Nash or like the next, whatever, next Shea nowadays. But like they send scouts to Ontario, they send scouts to Quebec. Like, there's even a lot of hoopers coming out of Montreal now. And I think that Canada's always been a country of like immigrants anyway. And so, we kind of have talent kind of coming across the world anyway. But you have both like the NBA spotlight here, but also like the infrastructure is starting to build, and it's just gonna kind of stay at this like steady pipeline, and it's just be a normal thing that like 3 or 4 Canadians are gonna be in the draft every year, which is awesome.
Go ahead.
Yeah, wanted to kind of call back to your answer about, that 2019 championship. I mean, in some ways, from what you guys have seen growing up and supporting the Raptors, I mean, was it a little bit of maybe sort of a blessing in disguise for the Grizzlies to move away from Vancouver so that there could be sort of a national spotlight on the Toronto Raptors and how things have built up over the last, from Vince Carter on?
I mean, I think if you ask people in Vancouver, they would say no. But no, I think the fact that I think it would have been cool to still have two basketball teams in Canada. I think it wouldn't have lessened the impact of the Raptors winning the championship in 2019. I think it's really unfortunate that things didn't work out for like financial reasons in Vancouver, because like you look at Vancouver, Will mentioned Montreal too. Like we have our own CBL league here, kind of like a minor league here in Canada, and there's teams all across the country, and it kind of does show like what we talked about earlier about this growing popularity of basketball in Canada. Like it is across the country. Like when the Raptors do preseason games or training camps in like Vancouver and Montreal, and if they have games there, like they are sold out and it's very high energy and fans are super excited to even just like go to open practices and stuff. So I guess to your question, like I actually would have loved to still have two teams here in Canada. I think it would have been great.
It's also just a crime to basketball that there's not a team in the Pacific Northwest
Yeah.
anymore. Like to lose Seattle and Vancouver is ridiculous. Like at least one of those two teams should have stuck around because there's just so many talented hoopers that come out from that area, you know.